You are listening to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, joined by James. How you going, James?
Not bad. How you going?
Yeah, not too bad. Callum can't be here this week. He's not feeling too well.
Yeah, we're back after another
Yeah, well,
week.
last week was just like, stuff happened last week. We had
Yeah.
tradies and there's a lot going on. But we're back this week. So, you'll listen to the Tuesday Review, assuming we don't lose power in the studio.
Yeah, it's storming outside. I don't know if you can hear it on the mic, but yeah, if we just cut off halfway through and we release an unfinished episode, you know why. Because it's really storming outside.
That's it. So it's just a little bit more of a relaxed one this week.
Yeah, since Callum's not here, we're not going to talk about the things we planned on talking about.
Because as always, every time we make a plan...
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I think from now, like we were talking about last episode of, like, things we're going to do to make, make the show, give it some more structure, but I think it's just, there's too much going on. So we're just going to come in each week, or when we can.
Play by ear, yeah.
Yeah, just talk about whatever. And yeah, like we said last episode, just kind of prioritize certain things that,
Yeah. But me and James have both seen Slow Horses now.
Yeah, Slow Horses Season 2. We talked briefly about Season 1 a few episodes ago, I think. And yeah, Season 2 came out very quickly after Season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I finished it, so I can't remember the details, but we won't do spoilers or anything like that because it's still quite new, and I don't think a lot of people are watching it.
Again, it's one of those things where Apple TV, as big as it is still kind of... I guess people pass it off as like it's just a part of Apple's other gimmicks. You know what I mean? It's like Apple Arcade, Apple TV, Apple Music, Apple News.
I think we talked about, like, when it started, it was a joke. And
it's
then
getting more...
The shows, shows started coming out that were actually quite good. But I think none of their shows have achieved, like, Stranger Things status or anything like that.
No, but they also don't really need to.
But no, and that's it's not a good thing, but it's like they're more. We talked about they're more like going for a HBO premium.
Less
quality over
more,
quantity.
Yeah, more quality. Yeah, less quantity. Yeah.
But also, most people, if you say you're watching a Netflix show, most people will be like, okay, I've heard of that. But if you say an Apple show, I don't know how many people.
Well, that's the thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they don't have as much brand recognition.
It's not like it's unseen niche thing, but it's also like I don't think everyone's seen Slow Horses out there.
I also think Apple's in a weird spot.
It's also a specific kind of show that's not.
Apple's in a weird spot where it's like it's harder for you to, like, if I want to watch Netflix, I have to download it. Apple's pre-built into the devices, and so a lot of people don't focus on it. You know what I mean?
That's
it's not also not in a position of relevance.
I think
when
availability, like, for a while, it wasn't available on non-Apple devices.
Yeah, exactly. It's on there now. Like, it's on most devices now.
Yeah.
But that's a more recent thing. So it's like people haven't been able to access it everywhere. But also their placement of the... it's also like, on an Apple TV, for instance, you've got where it starts at its default location. It's right up the top. And I'm like, all your other apps are down the bottom. So it's already kind of separate from where I'm seeing all my other apps. So from like a subconscious level, you're not going to go to it unless just as you're browsing.
Okay.
Because it's not in the same section as everything else. It's a part. Just from like a user design experience kind of thing, like a user experience.
I know they want to showcase it, but it would be probably smarter if they did both. Like, put it at the top and then also put it just amongst your other apps. Yeah,
for me it kind of backfires because it's like if I'm just channel flicking, I'm less likely to go to the Apple TV because it's more clicks away.
Yeah, that's... I think, like, I'm no fan of Apple as a company, and I think, it started off so rough and they're still relatively new considering, the other streaming services. So it's still early-ish. I mean, they've been around for a while.
It's been a couple years.
Yeah. But, like, still early-ish, like, things aren't catching on.
I think we talked about this once. We talked about Apple. Luckily, Apple TV, the resources needed is a drop in the ocean of
that's
stuff.
The thing.
That
it's kind of like
Amazon Prime.
It's Amazon, yeah. It's like it's like an other thing they do. Like Netflix, they only do Netflix.
It's like this is just like a side hustle.
Yeah,
they don't need to do this.
Which
It's like the budget is probably a rounding error in Apple's account.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Overall,
It's like, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Which ends up potentially being a good thing because it's just like we're just going to get whoever's the head of programming or whatever, he's just going to...
Let him do what he wants.
Yeah, do whatever.
As long as the show comes under X amount of budget, they don't need to know about it. You know what I mean? It's that kind of attitude.
I don't know how any of the business side works, but yeah, a lot of the Apple shows do feel closer to HBO in terms of their budget, and how they use and how they feel more premium.
They do.
But also they have less shows, so I guess it's closer to HBO and the fact that it's not like Netflix where there's 100,000 million shows every week.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get more of a wide...
I think there must only be less than a dozen shows a year that come out of Apple.
Yeah, I'm not
New
sure.
shows.
Yeah.
There's not that many.
Yeah.
But again, as you said, that's that HBO sort of quality before quantity ethos. And I think it works. Like with Slow Horses.
Oh, I don't hear that thunder?
I'm looking at the... We're looking at the waveform right now. I'm like, did it come up? I don't know. We'll find out later.
How was that? Like the
base, the house is shaking.
The desk was shaking.
Yeah. Okay. Like with Slow Horses, though, you can see, like, the budget is there.
We talked about in the first season, whenever we talked about a couple episodes ago, when it's just like, it's cool when, they're filming in London.
Yeah.
It's actual London streets. There's buses and cars going and people on, like, cyclists. There's people walking across the street, and it doesn't feel stagey, and it doesn't feel cheap, and it doesn't feel... Yeah, it feels like budget. Like, okay, they actually went and filmed, and there's extras, and there's things, and there's yada yada. And it's not the biggest show ever.
It doesn't have to
be. No, but it...
Yeah.
Even just when you go to someone's office, and it feels...
Again, it feels premium.
Yeah.
Like, the other thing I like about Slow Horses is that I feel like you can tell that the actors are having fun while making the show. Like, it feels like everyone's performances are good. You can tell Gary Oldman's probably having a blast.
Oh yeah, because his character is just the most, miserable prick who's like, also like deliberately antagonizing everyone.
But like, I can imagine that when making this show, everyone's having a great time. You know
it's also like a fun kind of spy show.
Yeah.
Like, because we talked about with the first season, it's about like the part of the MI5 that no one wants anything to do with, and that they give all the crap jobs to.
Yeah, it's also like the bureaucracy, like people that they might be extremely good agents, but for whatever reason, fault or not, if they're not at fault, they're not always. A few of the characters, it's nothing to do with them personally. They just happen to be there because of circumstances.
Well, yeah, it's like if you did something your boss didn't like, they send you down to the
Slow Horses.
Slow Horses, and it's like you do all the crap jobs. And Gary Oldman's character, who runs that,
he's like the king turd.
Yeah, he's just like, he doesn't want them to do anything. He's like, you work your 9 to 5 in the office. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. If you don't do anything, you can't get in trouble. And we get a paycheck, and then.
But he also slightly enjoys getting into trouble.
Yeah, but then because he was a good agent,
still is a good agent,
and he still is. But like, and then and because of the circumstances of the story, when then when there's a conspiracy, a terrorist conspiracy or whatever, and it happens to come across their desk, and they're the ones who have to, they're the underdogs who have to.
Exactly.
Do something about it. Because we talked about the first season, like the James Bond types in the big glass office are sniffing their own asses, and they're not looking in the right places.
Exactly.
And
everyone's too involved in their own little universe to be looking at the street, and it's like that's their kind of area.
They do the groundwork, the crappy jobs that no one wants to do, and that ends up leading them to break the big cases.
Like for instance, there's a scene in. I think it's season 2.
Yeah.
Or was it season 1? I'm not sure. Where one of the main characters just has to look through rubbish in a bin.
That's like the start of season 1, yeah.
Yeah, and he just has to look through rubbish in a bin.
Yeah.
And they're like, did you find it? No, then keep digging.
Just keep digging, yeah.
And it's like, it's that kind of work, you know what I mean? It's like essential work. It's like, this is how like a lot of this spy work is done, digging through rubbish. But James Bond types.
It's more realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I love spy shows. I love big James Bond fan. I like crazy fantasy,
gadget spy stuff.
Spy stuff. But I also love the really down to earth, realistic Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which also has Gary Oldman. You know, that kind of real, quote unquote, realistic spy work where it's a lot of like middle-aged men and like, you know, doing paperwork and stuff. And that's kind of like this show. But then, of course, they get thrown into some sort of conspiracy that they have to unravel, and there's action, but it's not like it's not a James Bond level of. It's more realistic. Like they don't really carry guns. It's like it's very British, you know, Secret Service, MI5. It's not a big action adventure show.
It's not Luther. It's not like, in terms of keeping it in English, it's not big bombastic kind of action all the time.
Well, I mean, I stopped watching Luther after like the 3rd season, not because it was bad, just because I had so much other stuff going on, and I never got back to it. And now I think it's grown into a different place.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the 1st season was pretty small, I remember.
Oh, yeah, it starts okay, and then it ends. But the last season ends, he's just like, Luther's basically just tearing through
that's how it feels. I haven't seen it, but it feels like now it's gotten out of hand. It's Luther
like abducting gangsters and throwing them in his truck and like tearing through a local
like
mob
Fast
or
and
whatever.
Furious presents Luther.
Which is good, but it's not what it was.
Yeah.
One thing I especially like about Slow Horses is that like all the character stuff with the older agents.
Yeah.
Like it's an area, so like the Cold War and like East Germany and all that kind of stuff. It's something that I don't think has really been done that much in like, say, a modern context. Like you're looking at Gary Oldman like other agents like Dickie and what's her name, Patricia? No,
Diana. Yeah.
And like kind of their backstories and like their past. And like,
oh wait, are you talking about who? Oh, no, yeah, never mind. It doesn't matter the names, but yeah. No, I know. It's there's other shows that do that. It's like back in the Cold War days, whatever. But yeah, this is the most recent one that comes to mind, and it's the most premium feeling one.
Yeah.
And it's based on a series of novels, and it feels like they've got the rights to all the novels. There's like 12 novels or something.
Oh, damn.
But it feels like they've got the rights and they're just going to adapt them all. They're going to streamline them all. This is what I think anyway. They're going to streamline them all and adapt them all into 4 or 5 seasons, because I doubt they'll do more than that. Because Gary Oldman has said that this most likely will be his last project. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But
look, I'm happy for it to be him. He's real good at
this. He's great. And also, like we said, at the end of this first season, they had a preview for season 2, and not even a year later, season 2 came out. And then at the end of season 2, there's a preview for season 3, which will assumedly come out before the end of the year. So they seem to be like shooting far ahead, and they're gonna. I'm hoping they're going to actually have a whole story and not just it'll get cancelled after a couple of seasons. I
mean, touch wood.
Yeah.
Apple hasn't really done too much of that so far.
Not yet.
Again, that's the benefit of keeping it tight, keeping it small.
I mean, I don't see why they would shoot all the seasons so far ahead if they didn't have a plan of like 4 or 5 season arc to sort of get everything.
I guess the other kind of thing is like they've got such a big star as like the head, right? So it's like you've got Gary Oldman. If you're Apple and you're like, we need a good show, like this is the one you can come out and be like, it's Gary Oldman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Gary Oldman's not like going to get all the kids in, like, and he's
no,
not.
But he gets the middle-aged people in, and they're still a big base.
True, and he's not. He's
mums have iPhones now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he's not. He's like the co-protagonist. There's River, who's like the young agent.
Yeah, but it's Gary Oldman on all the posters, man.
Yeah,
know what I mean? He's like the marketing.
He's the big name to market. Yeah.
But no, it's good. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's a really good show. If you like that spy espionage stuff, and it's funny, and Gary Oldman's such a prick. It's great.
The way he swears in this show,
it's so good.
Gives me life.
And I don't think we talked about it last time, but the scene in the first season where he's like drives up to the front gate of MI5 and he's like blasting, and I would walk 500 like in his car stereo, And so, like, all the guards come out with guns, and he's just not listening to them because he's singing.
Yeah.
It's got to be, like, one of the best TV moments of that year. And then season 2, when he's eating the noodles, just the most disgusting thing.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Oh, he's great.
He's so good. And all the other characters are good, too. Like, you got all, the misfit
Yeah, all the misfits.
agents who are all there.
Oh, I forget his name. Oh, the hacker. What's his name?
Roddy?
Roddy, yeah.
Yeah, he's a prick.
In a good way.
Yeah, they're all
like, you can tell why he's in the Slow Horses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everyone knows it's like, it's not the talent that's the problem. He's great. It's his personality.
That's the thing. Everyone in Slow Horses is there because they either screwed up or they're a dick or like, so you got these misfit agents who are like pretty good at their jobs, but like they're not polished enough to be, in the big office building, and like, the main headquarters.
Speaking of Roddy, like, one of my favorite scenes was in season 2 with him in the train.
Yeah, that was good.
That was tense.
Because you don't expect it from him.
You don't expect it from him. And then there's that whole sequence with the train. And I was like, oh my God, is he like, is this going to go how I think it's going to go? And like, without no spoilers, but that whole scene, was great.
Yeah, that was good.
Like, the show can do tension really well. When it wants to.
Yeah. It's a good tense show. And like I said, with the budget, it's like, when they have the big ending kind of thing, it's like it felt pretty.
Well, that's the other thing with it being mostly practical, or all practical basically, is it's like, you've got a train station, you've got train, they've got like, there's sequences of them looking at CCTV, and like there's crowds, and there's it all feels really good. And the soundtrack, the opening track, the Mick Jagger track.
Oh yeah.
I didn't skip an opening.
You didn't.
No skip intro. It's too good a song.
Misfits and losers. Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting show too, because like I said, I feel like, I'm not sure, but it feels like they're adapting as much of the novels as they can, streamlining it. And so it's only season 2, so I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I doubt they're going to do 12 seasons.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is they're probably just going to take the main arc of the book, which, as far as I know, the series isn't even finished, the book series. So they'd probably have to come up with their own ending of the show and streamline it to fit the 3 or 4 or 5 seasons that they do end up doing.
Like, I imagine they would have characters' arcs planned.
Usually I'd be like, oh no, they're going to screw it up. It's going to end up worse than Game of Thrones ending, whatever. But I kind of trust what they're doing, where they're going, and the fact that they've already got the next season coming out, and it's apparently Gary Oldman's last project, so I'm assuming he knows what they're doing, and they've got the books to go off of, but they don't have to stick. I
feel like if he can receive retirement in the future, then he's probably he knows what's coming.
Yeah, like he wouldn't just sign on for a show that's going to get cancelled after a couple of seasons. So, yeah, like I trust them to go, that they know what they're doing, and if they stay at this level of quality in writing and in quality in production value, if they can keep this up, that's the other thing. Like, I'm hoping that because they're doing the seasons in advance, like I'm hoping that there's like each season has a decent budget, and they're not just going to slowly get worse and worse and cut back until it's like all bottle episodes.
Quick, make as much as we can while Apple's giving us the cash.
That's why they're doing it so fast.
That's it. Quick.
Gary Oldman says he wants to be done by 2025.
quick. Yeah. Don't have to release them all at once. Just film it all while he's willing to work. No, and like the villains are always a good time so far. Without spoiling anything, season 1 was about a white supremacist group. That's evergreen villains.
Unfortunately, that's more relevant now than it.
And season 2 is the Dirty Russians.
Yeah,
that's evergreen. You know what I mean? It doesn't get old.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, still relevant all these years later.
Unfortunately,
these problems are still
what's
around.
interesting though is that the first season, I was just like, you don't think about it. There's nothing in the show that really leads you to it, but it feels like it's set in present day, 2022, let's say. The second season, they're going hard at showing it's actually 2016. Yeah. They went really hard. There's like calendars that are prominently in the shot that say 2016. there's like a bit where they're downloading security cam footage that says 2016, and then like at the end of the series they're like, oh, it's 2016, and like I got whiplash. I was like, hang on, when did this happen? So I don't know exactly why they're doing that.
I'm guessing it'll pay off in a future season. Are there events that happened in real life that they're going to try and tie into the show? Is something happened in 2017?
Maybe it's got something to do with when the books were published, and it's just like there's a certain event that has to line up. It felt very weird because I was like, there's no reason for this show to be set in 2016, unless they want to ignore COVID. But you can just do that. Set it in 2022. Just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do. Unless they're gonna flash forward at some point. I don't know. And like I said, they're gonna. It seems like, I don't know, but it seems like they're gonna streamline the book, so they're not gonna adapt everything that's in the books. They just have it as a framework,
which is working fine so far.
So far, yeah. I'm looking forward to season 3.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it.
Although, I mean, one thing I did notice in season 2, there were some scenes that looked, because the second season's set during the summer, and they make that a point. Like, it's hot and it's sunny, and there's some scenes where it looked very bright and cheap. Like, it looked overly, to me anyway, it looked overly bright. And the show, like, your first season looks fantastic, looks really high budget. Second season mostly looks good, but then there are scenes where it's like, I think they went too far in trying to make it look sunny, and it ended up looking bright and cheap, like a sitcom or something. And I don't know if that was just a misstep in trying to be like, hey, it's actually really sunny outside.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I just don't understand why they did that. Like, you can show it's hot and summery without blasting ugly sitcom levels of fake sunlight.
Yeah.
And it's because then there are other scenes where it's like there's not as sunny and it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And I just
some of it kind of looks soapy.
Exactly. Soap opera.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I don't understand. I think there were some missteps there. Maybe they were like, we have to show it summer. And again, I don't know why they felt that need.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I was watching Slow Horses, now I'm watching EastEnders.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's 100%. That's what I was feeling. I was just like, why does it look like it's bloody... But yeah. But it's still the good looking show. Still there's stuff going on where I was like, oh, they spent some money here. And it's got that BBC feel of like, it's just 6 episodes. Gets what it needs to get done. It gets it done and then it ends.
Which is always good, especially like
there's no filler.
No, it's all killer, no filler. And especially with, everything, there's so much to watch. It's like, I don't want to be tied down to like a 15 episode.
That's the thing, yeah.
Thriller show that's filled with,
I appreciate when a show's 6 episodes because I can just binge it and then move on. Like, I just watch it in a day and I'm like, okay, done.
But like the whole thing is, if you need more to tell your story, use more.
We've talked about it before.
But,
it's like
this show,
every movie, every show should be as long as it needs to be. If it needs to be 20 episodes, then it should be 20 episodes. Exactly. But I think this show does a good job. This show's nice and
tight, and it's 6 episodes, and it's...
And I mean, you could use a bit more character development here and there, but I think it's mostly about certain aspects.
I think...
It's mostly about the intrigue and the espionage stuff.
Yeah. No, that's good.
One thing I do, after watching the second season, I love Gary Oldman's character. What's his character's name? I've completely forgotten.
Oh. I'm looking it up.
Look it up. I've completely bloody blanked. I love his use of the word pillock.
Yeah, some good old-fashioned English words. We don't hear too much anymore.
I don't think I could...
Jackson Lamb, that's
right, yeah. I feel like...
Pillock.
Yeah, I feel like I could, like, I feel like I want to use it.
It's not used enough.
Yeah, like, I probably won't get away with using it, but I feel like I would like to call people, you stupid pillock. Like, it's so good.
Bring it back.
Yeah, we're bringing it back.
Hashtag bring back pillock.
Hashtag the Tuesday Pillock. You pillock.
You pillock. It's such a good word.
He's so good.
And that's another good thing. Like it's good swearing by Jackson Lamb, but it's good English swearing. Yeah, you pillock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's that kind of.
Yeah.
I can't remember how. Is there any C bombs? I'm sure there was a
Oh, I think there's a couple.
There might be a couple.
But he prefers the old F-bomb because it's safer.
Yeah, but we appreciate the C-bombs. There needs to be, more C-bombs.
Nah, it's so good. And other news.
Yeah,
Did you have anything else to say about
No, that's. I'm excited for season 3, and there's already been a the preview at the end of the season. We get the sneaky
little preview to keep us excited.
Yeah.
Other news, I finished watching Miss Marvel, and I have some thoughts. I actually thought I didn't like it as much the first episode, but it got a lot stronger as I went on.
As the first... Okay, like you didn't like it at the start.
I didn't like it at the start.
Okay,
it got a lot better as I went on.
Yeah.
I really liked the stuff in... Spoiler warning for Miss Marvel. Minor spoilers.
Yeah.
I really liked the stuff in Karachi. I thought that was pretty good.
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought that was only okay.
It was like... I think... It was alright.
So, I mean, I watched it back when it aired, so I can hardly remember it. I think I appreciated, like, the family stuff, the kind of... I think Marvel's pretty good at that stuff, like the banter and, her family. And I appreciate the Pakistani American, Muslim American family, and the food and the culture. And it's just like, it's just different. You don't see it a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate all that stuff. And it's the same thing we always talk about with Marvel. The superhero stuff is like meh.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
I had only 2 issues with the show. I feel like they did dirty to Bruno a little bit.
That's her friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like he got done a little bit dirty. He started off strong.
Yeah.
And then as the show went on, they sort of cared about him less and less a little bit. Like, yeah, it started with a strong focus on like Bruno and Kamala, and it's like this will they won't they kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then when all the kind of clandestine / Pakistan trip sort of stuff happened, he lost a lot of focus. And then by the end, it was what's his name?
Oh, the hot new guy at school.
Yeah, the hot new guy.
Yeah, I think I wrote it down in my notes when I was watching. I forgot
his name. It's blanking me. But I feel like he took all the focus.
Kamran.
Yeah. Kamran did our boy dirty.
Yeah, because he came in and then Bruno gets friend zone. Well, I mean, he's already in the friend zone, but you know what I mean.
But he was trying to get out at the start. You know what I mean? And you meant to...
I thought...
Yeah.
I did think because Kamran's mother ends up being the villain, and I thought that was really weak. That hurt. Like, the villain was super weak and then gets...
Super safe, super weak.
Super safe, and gets pretty much... kind of got dispatched, not even before the end of the show, I don't think.
No, like in the second last episode.
I feel like I enjoyed it, but it definitely felt like all the superhero stuff and the action stuff was pretty boring meh.
It was pretty weak. Justice for Bruno.
Yeah, okay.
His name is not Brian.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't think they dealt with his arc as well as they should have. They kind of just dropped him like it's hot and then focused on other things. So it didn't really get resolved.
It'll be interesting.
And right at the end, it's like, I'm going to California, and he didn't really want to, right? He was like...
I can't remember, yeah.
And he was kind of like, he got this scholarship to California, but he's not sure if he's going or not. And it's like, he's, is all that kind of stuff. By the end of it, he's just like, I'm going to Cali in this new car I stole off, what's his name?
Cameron, yeah.
And then that was it. I'm just like... Okay, I guess.
And then they all got in the car though?
Yeah.
Were they all going? I can't remember if they were all going. Or they were just driving.
They were just driving around.
Yeah,
anyway. Yeah, but all the action and the superhero special effects I thought were weak.
It's all meh.
It was all meh. Like the crystal effect.
Yeah.
Like, why? It doesn't just like have her like it's I feel like they didn't need to texturize it as much.
Because in the comic book she has kind of like stretchy powers, and I understand why they didn't want to do that. And I kind of like that it's like stretchy powers, but she has this energy, crystallized energy.
It didn't have to be crystal. I feel like it could have been. It would
like a Green Lantern energy hologram. Yeah, like a giant energy fist.
It would have looked cooler, and it probably would have been a lot.
I didn't mind the crystal. I like the crystal like platforms she can like use, but the actual implementation of it's all quite boring and ugly, and
it's samey. It's like everything's the same
because there's no good villain. It's like there's no good implementation of it.
Yeah, every time she uses her powers, it's just like the same, and I got bored of it. And then Cameron's powers or whatever, they're the same basically. Yeah, just implemented slightly differently, but they're the same. I'm just like,
yeah, like I said, the villain was really weak, and then her band of villains, the alien different dementia people, whatever they were called. Like, that was really boring. And then they all had like, swords and stuff. I'm like, what is this?
I have a feeling like it's all. This is someone on Twitter who works in the visual effects industry. Posted onto Twitter saying that he got offered a contract for a Marvel show, a Disney Plus show that hasn't come out yet. And, he did sign a partial NDA. He can't give any details, so we know nothing about the show, right? Yeah. But he said that they offered him contract work that was expected to be like, it was 6 months worth of work. They wanted him to do in like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And he was like, what that would mean would be 16-hour days for less pay than he's worth. He said no, so he's allowed to talk about the contract. He just can't talk about the work.
What was it for? Yeah.
But I'm like, is that the reason?
Yes.
All the special effects are the same? It's basically just copy paste-ish.
I don't know. I'm sure we've talked about it before. I don't know if we've ever actually got to this part of the problem. I know we've talked about the CGI, the studios who do it, and they're always overworked and underpaid, and then they end up closing because they don't get paid and whatever, and then the CGI ends up looking crap anyway, and we're like, what was all that work for? And we were kind of like, well, we know that our artists are talented and we know they're hardworking. Why does it keep coming to this? And it's for that reason, is because especially with MCU, they have such fast turnaround with their next show, their next movie, and they have so much CGI in the whole project that they basically just need a rush.
And I have a feeling, obviously we know nothing, but I have a feeling that's why all the superpowers are kind of samey and visually.
You have to do it quickly, and that's why
quick. Yeah. So it's a lot of let's just make up a template for
and that's
these
why the action,
powers.
the action is always so lazy and shot boringly, and just on like her running in front of green screen, and then CGI stuff falls around, and it's just like there's no time and care taken. And we've talked about before. There's no time and care taken to craft an action scene. And actually choreograph and implement the special effects into the real elements. And you end up with shit like Black Widow, where it's just like her falling in front of a green screen with like CGI explosions, and it's the worst looking thing I've ever seen in my life. And it keeps happening, and it's because of stuff like this, where it's too much. They overdo it, and they overwork the people who do the work, and they give them impossible deadlines for the amount of work, and so you just get really subpar.
So like, I have a feeling that's probably most of the reason why the special effects, all the powers look vaguely the same, because it's just an easy way to get it done efficiently.
100%.
But I'm also wondering, will they change it slightly for when they do like a movie with her? Will they give it more of a budget than the TV show?
I'm sure
the powers look a little different.
Yeah, it might look a bit better, but I don't know how much.
Or is it just going to be crystals?
But because we know the MCU, it's like we know that yes, the movies might have a bit better, bigger action and better CGI, but at the end of the day, it's the problem with all the MCU movies. They all look like this. None of them look particularly that good, and none of them have that great action. It's all CGI, quick, green screen, lazy. We've talked about the Shang-Chi. We talked about it with, the last however many movies that came out.
Yeah.
It's always the same.
Yeah.
So it's just the TV shows are even kind of probably lower budget and higher turnaround. And so you get crap like Moon Knight, where it looks like PS2 graphics.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love the parts of Moon Knight with the split personality and all that, but the actual superhero stuff, which should be a large part of it, or is a large part of it, always sucks.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
This is why we stopped going to see Marvel movies at the cinema. Even though I like them, it's like, this is the problem. They're all the same. Its characters are cool. Superhero stuff is bad. Yeah. They're funny, but the action is CGI garbage. Yeah. It's like, why am I spending money to go see this on the big screen?
Yeah.
I'll just watch it on the Disney Plus.
Exactly. Which comes out soon.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Black Panther when it comes out on Disney Plus.
So it's a new release for us, all right, nerds?
Yeah, exactly.
So the next on my list is now She-Hulk. Which I'm hoping the CG is a lot better because I know I haven't seen much. I haven't seen much She-Hulk yet. I haven't seen any.
Yeah, some of it's really good, some of it's really bad.
I remember in the lead up, you see photos of it just looked like the lady painted her face green. Or whatever. I'm like, ooh, it looks a bit rough.
Honestly, it probably would have been better if they just painted her green. I feel like, but we've talked about this with the MCU before. They've gone too far, and people are, especially I'm assuming younger people, but older people too. People are conditioned to that's how superhero movies look now. So if you made a movie like an old school superhero movie, people will go like, oh, this looks fake, this looks cheap. But then if you just throw a whole bunch of CGI on screen, people go nuts for it.
Oh, this must have cost a lot to make.
Yeah. And that's what I think, did we talk about this last time?
Oh, we have, yeah.
I mean, I know we've talked about it. I mean, we always talk about the same thing every episode. But yeah, it's like now when people watch like MCU movies, they go, wow, this must have cost a lot of money because it's just CGI garbage everywhere. But then like we talk about the Fablemans. It's like Callum and I watched the Fablemans. It's like, oh, there's 1950s cars and people in fedoras walking across the screen. This must have cost a lot of money. Like that's where I miss the budget going. Yeah. That's why with Slow Horses, I'm like, I like seeing a double-decker bus go down a London street and there's people walking and...
On that note, there's a new Apple TV show coming out, The World of Tomorrow, the Tomorrow World. It's set in the... I'll look it up now.
Yeah, look it up.
It's set in like the 50s. And it looks pretty big budget. It's like retro sci-fi, so it almost looks like Fallout in like aesthetic.
They're making a Fallout show too as well on Amazon.
Look, I'll look it up. We'll go to a quick break and we'll come back with that.
Okay, yeah, because I have another thing to say about Miss Marvel as well. We'll talk about it after.
We'll be back right after this. You were back on the Tuesday review. The show was called Hello Tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, so the show Nathan was referencing before the break was a new Apple
TV original.
Yeah.
Hello Tomorrow.
I hadn't heard of it, so I just watched the trailer then during the break. And yeah, it's like this cool retro futuristic, like kind of 1950s, but they have like little robots and you know, instead of going on planes, they have like those little... you know, those old school rocket ships.
Jetpacks. Oh, rocket ships, yeah.
Yeah, and they have like the rocket ships and stuff like that. So yeah, that looks really cool.
Yeah. And then I said to James during the break, I'm like, using that Ted Lasso money well, which, correction, we said Apple doesn't have a show worthy of Stranger Things level
I guess that's their big flagship show.
When you've got your characters in the FIFA game, man.
Yeah, that you know you've made it when you're in FIFA. No, but yeah, I guess Ted Lasso's their main. Like, you know, we were talking about like, maybe all the Apple shows aren't as well known as some of the Netflix or Amazon shows, but Ted Lasso is probably their big name show.
It's everywhere. Yeah. So they got
did we talk? I can't remember if we talked about this. Every time we talk about Apple, I forget to bring it up. I'm pretty sure we talked about it. Rob McElhenney from
Welcome to Wrexham?
No, not that. We talked about Welcome to He has his
Mythic Quest
show. Have you watched it?
I haven't.
Okay, because I think you and Callum will like it because it's like a video game developer, like sitcom. Season 3 just came out. Season 3 is not as good as season 1 and 2, but it's still good. But I'm looking forward to season 4. See, that's a show on Apple that I like. I think it's a funny show. You guys will enjoy it.
Yeah, I also have to watch Servant.
I like Servant. Servant. I watched season 1 and 2, and I was just like waiting for season 3 to come out. And then I looked online the other day, and season 4's coming up. I said, "Hang on, when did season?" So I had to. So now I have to watch. I'm so far behind. And I think
snuck up on you.
Yeah, I hate. There's too many shows, and I can't keep track.
Yeah,
it's overwhelming. But anyway, I guess we should wrap up Miss Marvel because we were talking about that and we've kind of moved on. But I because it's been a while since I watched it, but I enjoyed it. I liked all the character stuff, between her and her mum, and I liked all the flashback stuff in like the 40s, and you see that kind of stuff. That was cool.
Yeah. And
like I said, I like all the culture and the food, and it just makes it a bit different.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think like because it's the same problem I have with all the Marvel stuff. It's like, what is this? Like, we watch Moon Knight and we're like, what is this? what is this leading to? Is it leading to anything? It's not self-contained, but
again,
it kind of is.
We've complained about this before. This is just getting us to watch the Marvels.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, like I enjoyed She-Hulk, but it's like, what is this? It's like, where is this? And especially with Miss Marvel, because the end directly leads into the Captain Marvel sequel, The Marvels. And so I guess you have to watch this to set up who Kamala is when she shows up in the movie. But I'm like, is this going to be like a WandaVision situation where you start watching Doctor Strange 2 and you're like, huh? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know, shouldn't have watched WandaVision. Didn't make any, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's too much. It's all just content. They're churning it out. And I remember Callum sent us in the group chat an article about how Marvel's thinking of like pulling it back a bit and, you know, being more so. And I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, and the masses shout, please.
Yeah, because their release schedule is insane and they've got so many movies and shows coming out, and I doubt they're going to all of a sudden be like, oh, you know what, we'll only do a few movies and a few shows. So I think the machine is just too
100%.
far gone. Like, yeah, and like I said, I enjoy it, but, you know, it does feel... Yeah, it just feels like homework almost. Like,
Yeah.
you have to watch all the shows and movies just to catch up. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Especially when there's so much to watch and you kind of like, well, should I waste my time or whatever?
Yeah, no. Before we move on to you have a couple of video games to talk about. Keeping on video games, but referencing what we were talking about before. I'm hoping Callum will talk about this in the next few weeks after he's played it. But Forspoken came out today.
He wanted to play that, yeah.
And it leads into what we're talking about with the so much work to do, so little time.
Yeah.
The game has horrendous graphics problems, from what I can see. The PlayStation 5 on performance mode struggles to run it at 720p.
Jesus Christ. But see, this seems to happen a lot with video games, is they keep releasing these broken, buggy games, and it's the same thing every time.
People aren't paid enough.
Yeah,
and
they overwork. There's the whole crunch problem in the video game industry. And it's just... Yeah, it keeps happening.
It's not that, like, and the whole thing is, basically the game was also unplayable on PC too. The requirements are so extreme and the performance so bad.
Did you hear about Callisto Protocol? Like, apparently it was almost unplayable.
Yeah.
And it's just like these big polished games. It's just they're overworking their stuff
and it's
to meet deadlines, and then the game comes out, it's not even playable.
No, and we're coming to a point now where studios have closed, right? Studios are really struggling. If you look, not that many games have come out in the last year or two. And due to COVID, whatever else.
COVID, yeah.
Studios are struggling. Games are getting too expensive to make because now all the games primarily driven by Sony. Motion capture performances are now the primary done thing, and it's becoming more akin to making a movie in certain situations.
That's the thing, is like they spend over $100 million on these big budget AAA games, and you end up playing them. You're like, what for?
Yeah,
and I guess it's the same with like something like the MCU. They spend all this money on it, and you're kind of like, what for? You can't see it in the end product.
Exactly. And like, yeah, sure, like, you know, games in motion capture, for instance, Sony helped with the motion capture for the Callisto Protocol, which also needed to make like over $100 million to break even. And like when games are costing this much to make for whatever reason, I don't know, right? They cost this much to make at a AAA level. Maybe you should just, you know, cut it down. AAA games in the last year or two have been much better than the AAA games. The indie
AA games, yeah.
The indie games have been much better than AAA games.
Yeah, we talked about
recently.
it. It's like I only play indie games now. Like, I'm not interested in any of the big AAA titles, and the ones I am interested in, I always wait till they go down in price anyway. Like
Scorn, you know, maybe it took 10 years to make.
Yeah.
But it looks great.
and like I said when we were talking about it, it's like, yes, it would have been great if it had a bit more budget and more content, but at the end of the day, this kind of game wouldn't get made if it was a big...
And look, people talk shit on Xbox and Games Pass for not releasing any AAA games or whatever else, but you know what? they put money into the indie games.
They have AAA games on the Game Pass.
They do, but nothing like has come out recently from their first party developers. But they support the development of all these indie games. A couple we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe it's not such a bad thing that we can play 6 indie games a year or 2 kind of terrible AAA games a year that look maybe a little better.
Yeah, for the $100 you're going to spend on this garbage AAA games that
120.
Yeah, exactly. Now the new consoles, like for that amount of money to play something that's not even playable because it's all glitchy and broken, and half of the content is in DLC that you have to pay for or wait for later. It's like for that money you can how many indie games you can play, or double A titles can you play?
I recently bought the new Fire Emblem game on my Nintendo Switch, Fire Emblem Engage, and I'm having a good time with it. But one thing that pissed me off was it's like buy the DLC now. So with this game, the core feature
I hate that.
The core feature is there are spirits contained within rings which you can equip on characters, and they're part of the story, right? And the whole thing is buy the DLC pass, you'll get extra quests and extra rings. And I'm like, so you've chopped part of the story up to sell me later on. I'm not going to buy it. I'll just play the game with what I've got. We've
talked about it. It's like with the movie industry. The game industry has become so money focused that it's just like it's not about the art or the storytelling or the gameplay anymore. Yeah. It's just like we need to sell people loot boxes and we need to maximize profits. So we're going to cut chunks out of the game, and then the main game's going to suffer. And then the chunks we cut out, we're going to slowly drip feed you. You have to pay more and more each time. Yeah. I'm just so over it.
Exactly. Segueing into what we're going to talk about is Microsoft. Basically, luckily, I am simping for Microsoft, but I'm being objective
we do
here.
It all the time.
On air and off. Anyway, Microsoft let Obsidian make a game called Pentiment.
Yeah.
Which is a lower budget indie title, and the game copped a lot of crap on the internet for why did Obsidian, like this really good studio, why did they make this weird looking indie title when they have this much stuff, this much money? The answer, because they wanted to.
I think Callum brought it up because I know he wanted to play it, and he brought it to my attention. And yeah, it's like a old medieval tapestry, like the way that art is, all the people are like on their side, on profile, and the whole game is like that.
It's like a point and click adventure kind of mystery.
Sort of, yeah. It's like a murder mystery, and it's set in the 1500s and is in Bavaria, and you have, and you walk around the town and you have to talk to people and figure out, who the murderer is. And there's a lot more going on, obviously, but that was the basic premise of it. And usually a game like this, would be made by a very small group, small indie studio, or just a few people. But it was made by Obsidian, who usually make big AAA games. There wasn't that many actual staff of Obsidian.
That's what I was going to say. I think a lot of them are working on, The Outer Worlds 2, something like that.
Yeah, one of their bigger games. But that's what I was going to say, is even though it's got their name on it, I think it's just a small little few people team that is working on this specifically.
Yeah, but they had the freedom to do it.
It's just, and that's the thing. It's good that they got the freedom to do it, but it's unfair to say this is an Obsidian game because that's misleading. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, Pentiment. Have you played any of it?
I started it, but my Witcher 3 addiction is crippling.
Yeah. I mean, Witcher 3 will take you forever, so you got to get to it when you can. But yeah, I finished playing Pentiment, and thanks to Game Pass. And yeah, I liked it because like when Callum told me about it and I looked it up, like I'm interested in that art style and that, period of time and the history behind it. And so that was interesting, and playing the game kind of like with Scorn, kind of like with any indie game. It's like something you like, but you're like, I wish they just went a little bit more. I wish they had a little bit more money or whatever. I guess but like with Scorn, it's like it's unfair to kind of say that because you're like, then it just becomes something it's not, and then it can become something bloated.
It's one of those things where I'm hoping, like the success, if it does succeed, will lead Microsoft and Obsidian to possibly have more confidence in releasing smaller games?
Well, I don't think they don't really have a problem with releasing games like this because there's quite a few on Game Pass.
That's true.
And not to mention even smaller games that might not necessarily go on Game Pass, but still come out on consoles. There's still a strong indie scene. I think more so than indie movies. You know, we complain a lot. We complain a lot about mainstream movies, and yes, there's a lot of indie movies, but I feel like an indie game is also, the indie game industry is like different to the indie movie industry, where it's like one person can make something that's almost as good as some of the higher polished video games sometimes.
This is going to sound weird, but video games are more democratized. I make a video game, everyone in the world is going to appreciate it at face value. You make a local, small-time Australian movie, not everyone's going to be able to see it. There's more hoops.
Maybe, yeah.
Right? So it's like...
I guess it's also like a movie because you have actors and locations and so on. Whereas a game is, like I said, it can be one kid in his bedroom.
Exactly.
Create this entire world.
Well, you take Goose Game. It was like 3 dudes in Brunswick or whatever that made it.
Yeah.
And that was like the biggest game on Nintendo Switch for the year it was released, right? And it's like...
I think that's what I like about indie games as well, is they're more creative. Like AAA games used to be creative. Big budget games that used to come out on the consoles used to be creative, even if they were just a first-person shooter or whatever. There used to be some element of it where it's just like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Now it's FIFA, it's Call of Duty, it's all the same crap, and you have to go to indie games to get something that's different and more interesting.
Yeah.
And weirder.
Exactly. And shout out to our man Daniel Andrews. Under the Victorian government, we do pretty much Melbourne or Victoria is the home of like 90% of the Australian video games industry.
I think we talked about maybe when we're talking about PAX, there's a strong indie game scene in Melbourne now. In Victoria,
massive, Well, because we're pretty much the only state that throws cash at video games. Like the Victorian government partnered to make Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah.
And imagine the money they've made now in return.
Yeah, it's like... what's it called when you make a movie and it's got the Vic...
Yeah, the Vic Gov logo kind of thing.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. But you get that with games as well.
Yeah, so it's like... It's a safe investment, I guess. In return, when the game is massive, you make all your money back and you probably subsidise all the other grants you give.
It's always good when like the government supports the arts. You know, when you watch a British movie and it's got the government, lottery logo or whatever...
I don't know how true this is, but the other week I was at the Jazz Lab and it was an old jazz pianist, Tony Gould, and he was releasing his new album with Someone McKay, and he said that 75% of all the Australian arts funding goes to the opera, just the opera.
Huh?
Yeah, I think that will be federal funding.
Yeah,
but that's insane. 75% of all funding is basically...
It must be popular then. Or is it just because rich people go to the opera?
I think... look, I don't know, man.
Do rich people even go to the opera? Like, is that a stereotype that...
I don't know, maybe.
They only go because it's a stereotype?
I would assume because it's just like the people that like the opera and they give most of the cash to the opera. Like, for instance, he said... I don't know how true all this is, but the guy in the Jazz Lab, the pianist, he was 82 years old. He's been doing this since the 60s.
Jeez.
And he's released dozens of albums. And he said it's places like the Jazz Lab that keep the industry alive, not the government.
No.
And like at least with video games.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is usually we got some support. Usually the government just neglects everything, like especially musicians, especially during COVID. But so when they do give grants and whatever to video games and
it pays
movies,
off.
It's like okay. Good because you got to be supporting that stuff. Otherwise, people just leave and they go to America or wherever they can.
Yeah. But you like Pentiment?
Yeah. So I finished Pentiment. It was good. Like I said, I wish because there's no voice acting. It's all like the script. Like a quill, and that plays into the game, which I liked because the peasants have like. The
fonts are different.
Yeah, their speech bubble has like, scratchy kind of peasant writing, and then the more, more well-educated people have like very fancy script, and then there's like the local printer, the town printer. He's got printed font. So I mean that's cool and it plays in. But like I wish there was some voice acting. That would be cool.
I think that also is a major problem with like the point-and-click adventure games. A lot of them come out and they all look nice, but they kind of need voice acting. I mean, it draws you in a little bit more.
It's like I just said. It's like with video games, you can like it can just be like one kid in his bedroom making it, and so a lot of these really low-budget indie RPGs have all this text, and because there's a lot of text and dialogue. I understand why there's not voice acting, because this game specifically, like I said, it's from Obsidian, but it's from a small team or within them. So I understand why it's not a big production of voice actors, but yeah, it would have been nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it would have helped with the engaging into the story. But yeah. I like that. I like that. I like the fact that it's based on that artwork, and it's all
It's different, yeah.
Yeah, but the more you look at it, the more it's just like, okay, yes, it's based on the artwork, but it doesn't really look like that artwork. It's kind of just they've used it as a reference, and yeah, and the sort of murder mystery is interesting. But never really satisfying, which I think is the point of the game. But mostly, I think what's interesting about the game is there's also very little music, which I found unusual.
I would have thought like some sort of medieval score.
Yeah, there's no score under any of the game except for a couple of moments, which is I found very strange.
I would find that weird, especially because like you can have that kind of...
You're like walking across town and you just hear like, the chickens in their farm. Yeah, exactly. It felt kind of weird, and you hear the blacksmith banging on his anvil, and it's just like it felt like there should have, while you're walking, there should have been a little underscore,
like medieval harpsichords.
Yeah,
or like
and there's some of that, but only during specific scenes,
that's
and
strange.
very, very not often at all. So that was strange. But yeah, I think what's most interesting about the game is that they kind of strived for historical accuracy. So like if you have a meal with the peasants, the food you get is medieval peasant food. If you have it with the more wealthy people, you go. And so like they took time to kind of research.
It's also a timed game, yeah. Time passes.
Yeah, it's interesting because you've got like 2 days to solve the murder. And so you can't just walk around, talk to everyone and figure out who it is. You kind of have to figure out what you want to spend your time doing. And on one hand, it's very frustrating because the game arbitrarily is just like, oh, you have to sit down and eat with this person if you want to learn what they know. And if you sit down and eat with them,
time will pass.
It's the whole afternoon you're going to be sitting. And I'm like, come on, man, it's a murder. Just ask the guy what he knows and then move on. But I understand it's supposed to be that way because you have to feel like you're running out of time.
Yeah.
And it's not like other RPGs where it's like you get to talk to everyone and go through all the dialogue options. You kind of have to pick and choose what you want to do and say. But it is a bit frustrating where you're like, this is ridiculous. This guy's time management skills are garbage.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it does add an extra layer to it where it's like you have to think, who do I want to spend my time talking to, having a meal with?
Yeah.
And you can easily waste your time having a meal with someone across a whole afternoon and not learn anything, which is really annoying. But again, I guess fits into the game where it's just like you don't know. You just can't have to go with your gut instinct. Yeah. And the main character is an artist, so he's not like an investigator or anything, and he has no real authority. He's just trying to help out a friend. And so you do the best you can.
Yeah.
It's an interesting game. And the fact that Game Pass gave me the ability to play it.
Wouldn't exist without Game Pass.
Well, yeah, but also like I didn't have to, it was only like $30 to buy the game, but it's like the fact I didn't have to spend the full price on it. I could just subscribe to Game Pass and play it. So that's good. And yeah, like I said, it's based on that historical period that I'm interested in, and there's the art aspect to it, and the food and the language they use to do, and there's like a whole glossary, so you understand all the old terms. But yeah, it's an interesting game.
Another game you played through Game Pass?
So I actually played this one first before I played Pentiment, because listeners might remember I subscribed to Game Pass to play High on Life, and then after I finished speaking of High on Life, what's his name got cancelled?
Yeah, well, I mean,
I don't know what's going to happen with Rick and Morty.
I mean, if it's true, fair enough.
Yeah, no, but I wonder what's going to happen now. Anyway, sorry. So I played that, and then I had a couple weeks left over of my Game Pass. I'm like, I should play another game. So I played that other game, and then I still had some time over, so that's when I played Pentiment. But then Pentiment ran a lot longer than I thought, so I ended up subscribing for another month of Game Pass. And it's well worth the money, but I just don't have time to play, so I'll have to cancel it after that month. But yeah, I've got to play 3 games for
$50,
$16.
Oh, that's pretty good, man.
Yeah, because the first month was $1 for the introductory prize, and then the second month was like $15.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I finished High on Life, and then I was like, every YouTuber I watch, every best games of 2022, favorite games of 2022 list that I've seen, there's this game called Immortality that has popped up.
And it's a game made specifically for James because you're piecing together a movie.
Basically, yes. So I keep hearing about this game. Oh, it's mysterious. It's interesting. It's unlike any game you've played. And it keeps coming up on people's like best games of 2022 list.
I dabbled with this game, but I got frustrated.
Yeah, it is frustrating. So I keep hearing about this. I'm like, what is it? And I knew it was made by a guy who his previous game, Her Story, I think it was called. I remember that coming out a few years ago, and that being, quite popular online, like getting a lot of buzz. And that was like a live action game where you look at interrogation footage of like a police station interrogation footage, and you have to piece through. And I never played it, but people were talking about it. Got a lot of buzz. So I knew he made that game. And he made another game called Telling Lies, which was also a live action footage game where you kind of have to figure out what's going on. Anyway, this game, Immortality, it's live action footage, like real actors, actual filmed scenes, like a movie. But basically, the game is in the world of the game, there was an actress, Marissa Marcel, who in the late 60s and early 70s, she made 2 movies. And then in the late 90s, she made another movie. And all 3 movies were never released due to mysterious reasons. And she went missing. And so it's your job as the player to go through all the raw footage of these movies and piece together what the hell happened. And what's interesting is it only gives you small clips, like each take out of order. So
I think the basic mechanics, if I'm understanding from what I remember playing, was like you would see a little clip, but I'm not going to highlight or click on different aspects of like a...
So basically, like what I'm saying is like you'll get a clip of a scene, like a shot in the film of like, and it'll start with the clapperboard and, take one, clap, and then they'll go through the scene, and then the director will yell cut. So it'll only be like a small clip of a movie. It won't be a full thing. And then within that clip, you can move your cursor around and click on different aspects of the scene. Like, so if there's a candle in the corner, you click on the candle, and that'll transport you to another clip that you didn't see before.
Yeah, so like a point of interest.
Yeah. And then you discover what happened in that clip, and then there might be an apple in a bowl, and you click on the apple, and then it might go to another clip of someone eating an apple, but it might be from a movie from decades later. So you never know what you're going to get. You just have to keep clicking. And it ends up being frustrating because after a while, once you unlock enough clips, you start seeing the same clips again and again. And so it's strange that it's...
Yeah, I remember being a little frustrated.
Yeah, but you have to invest, like I invested quite a bit of time in it. I think what's interesting, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things about the game, is...
It gets a bit awkward when you're like clicking and you get clips you've already seen.
Yeah, so like you click around the footage, and yeah, after a while, once you unlock enough footage, you end up starting to see the same things over and over again. So that can be frustrating. And you get to a point where you unlock enough footage where you're like, well, what should I be clicking on? Like, I'm not just clicking on everything now. And you can click on something, but it might not take you to a specific scene with that in it. Or you can click on a specific actor and it might not take you to a specific movie with that actor in it. And so, yeah, you have to invest in it. Like, it took me a couple of weekends, 2 or 3 weekends to finish. But what's interesting, I think I was talking before we got interrupted. I think I was talking about the production of it is quite impressive, considering I don't think it's a really big budget game. It's definitely not a big AAA title. But whatever,
they would have had to film the movie.
Yeah, whatever. Basically, they almost shot 3 movies, good-looking movies. Not only that, but they shot them to look like they were from the late 60s, early 70s, and the late 90s. So it's just like whoever...
It's layers of impressive...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also you have actors playing characters. So everyone gives great performances. And then on top of that, you got like behind the scenes footage, table rehearsals, script reads and all that, and audition footage, you know, from the 60s where people are smoking and there's, wearing, old clothes. And it's just like, the way it's lit, and it's just like, it's really impressive. Like, the production value is very, very well done for something that's probably not the biggest budget in the world. I'm like, after it was done, I was like, if they used this money, they probably could have just shot a movie that was set in the 60s or 70s, and it probably would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, it's really
Yeah.
impressive. But I think what's interesting, like I was saying, is that you're clicking around, unlocking the footage, and you're unlocking all this footage out of order, and it could be from either of the 3 movies, and not just from the movies, but the behind-the-scenes stuff, like I just mentioned. And you kind of just have to piece together. It's like, what's the story of the movies, and what's going on behind the scenes with the actors, and what happened to the actress Marissa Marcel. And the game doesn't really tell you any of this. I'm explaining it to the listeners, but the game doesn't tell you anything. It basically just starts and says, click around to unlock footage. And that's it. It doesn't tell you any of the backstory or nothing. It doesn't tell you what you're supposed to be doing. So it took me like 4 hours of clicking around, unlocking footage.
Which respect, but like, I think I got frustrated because I didn't know what I was doing, and I kept getting the same footage, and I was like...
Yeah, you have to... And that's the thing, is like, it took me about 4 hours before I sort of realized what to do. So, and then it took me another 4 hours after that to realize... oh, there's more to this game than meets the eye. So it took me like 8 hours, which is the length of a normal game, like some normal games, before I could even sort of start to grasp what I should be doing and where I was going with it. And I think it took me another like 8 hours to finish it. But the thing is, is like, the more you go through the footage, the more you kind of figure out what's going on. And like I said, the game doesn't tell you if you've unlocked something important or whatever. It's all up to you to keep track of it and to sort of figure out what's going on.
So this is a game where I need a piece of paper and a pen. Like, make notes.
Yeah, or you need a good memory, or which
most people don't.
The older
have.
we get, the worse it gets. But so like, after all this time, I'm like, and then you realize that there's not just the footage I've been talking about. there's something else going on underneath, potentially supernatural. And I won't say much more other than there are certain clips, and I won't tell you which clips they are. It won't be immediately apparent to you, where if you reverse the footage, there's more footage underneath.
So I might have to revisit this one.
Yeah, and don't look up anything. I'm kind of saying too much already. Don't look up anything about it.
If I really struggle, I'll just text you.
Yeah. And basically, like, you go through and you're watching this footage of like a late 60s movie with the actors, and then you kind of reverse it, and then all of a sudden there's something else underneath the footage, and you're like, hang on. And so then now there's a second story of like, wait, what's going on? Who are these people? What's going on here? What happened to Marissa, and how did she make these 3 movies? Why were they never released? And why were the movies that came out, why hasn't she aged between the 60s and the late 90s? Like, what's going on? And you, like I said, you just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And the game doesn't hold your hand at all. And yeah, it took me a while to go through scrub through all the footage. And it's basically 3 almost full movies to scrub through. Going forward and fast forwarding and rewinding.
Is there at least like a clip menu where you can go through and see what minutes you've unlocked of a movie, or do you just have to?
No, it just is basically just a big collage, and you can order it in the date it was filmed or the date it takes place in the movie.
Okay, yeah. So there's a way to order the footage at least.
Roughly, yeah. And you can favorite. You can put a little mark so you know which clips are important to you or whatever. But otherwise, the game doesn't hold your hand at all. You just kind of have to figure it out. And yeah, it was really interesting. I've never played anything else like it. I know there are other full motion video live action footage games.
Mostly they're shit anyway.
And mostly they're much more simple than this one, which was, there's so much going on and so much going on underneath the surface. And then there are I won't spoil anything, but yeah, there are certain themes that don't just relate to filmmaking and art, but also potential supernatural, and also, the way we treat actors and the way we treat people. And it's like there's all this stuff going on, and you kind of just have to slowly piece it together over all this random, out of order footage.
Excellent.
So yeah, it was really interesting, and I'm glad I got to play it because people, everyone's been hyping it up. And I didn't want to spoil myself. I just saw it in people's lists. And of course, after I played it, then I went and, people are doing deconstruction videos on YouTube and stuff.
That's always fun.
Yeah, which is good after. Yeah, but you don't want to look. Don't look up anything before because you'll get spoiled. And part of the fun of it is stumbling across something and you're like, what the hell is this? Is it supposed to be here?
Yeah.
Because you don't get a lot of games like that where it's just like, hang on, what's going on?
Yeah.
So that was an interesting.
Again, you know what? Indies saved the year last year.
Yeah, the indie game industry is where all the interesting games are, and where basically are the only games I play now.
And look, again, I've said this a lot. Luckily, we have Games Pass, and Microsoft seemed to be throwing truckloads of cash at some of these smaller studios.
I think
to get them on their service.
It's also a double-edged sword sort of thing where, you get people who play these sort of small indie games who normally wouldn't play them. And on one hand, that's really good because it gets an audience that usually wouldn't even give these games a time of day. But on the other hand, you get a whole bunch of #gamers who,
Where's is the ray tracing?
Yeah, who
it's not 120 frames a second. I'm not interested.
Yeah, who are subscribed to Game Pass because they're like games, but then play these small games like, this is crap. Why doesn't this isn't a game? It's got live action. It's not a game. And yeah, I just.
Well, look, luckily the games are popular without them anyway.
Yeah, and it's good that you can play them. And sort of get them out to a wide audience. And as we discussed on previous episodes, Nathan's talked about how it gives the developers of these games a little boost, both in money and in
it's a surety.
word of mouth.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but I forget what game it was now, but someone released a game on Games Pass, and they were like, Microsoft just paid me for the last 12 months of my life. Thank you. Like, otherwise, because the whole thing is with indie games especially, you're not sure if your game is going to be a success, right? You're risking your whole livelihood on the chance that your game does well.
Mm.
And if
someone might stumble across it in the Xbox store or on Steam.
Exactly. And if you're given an offer where they're like, look, we'll have this game on Games Pass for 18 months and we'll pay you for the last year of your life. You're going to say, of course I'll do that. I'll have another one ready for you for the next 12 months.
We talked about it. Yeah, it's like it gives them the opportunity to make more games and to get people to play the games that they might not have otherwise.
And I guess also it gets you into, a business relationship with someone that can help you more in the future. Yeah,
being friendly with Microsoft can't be...
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it can't be a bad thing, but it probably can. But, it's...
Again, it gives you an inroad.
Especially for very small indie developers, like, one-man teams or, few-person teams.
Exactly. And there's a chance that Microsoft will finance your next game in the future before you release it. So it's like there's more surety.
Yeah. And, we get all these really weird, interesting games that, is unlike anything I've played.
Which is what the interesting side is. Video games for us now.
Yeah. Now, because all the AAA stuff has become like Marvel movies. It's like same, boring.
Basically.
They reskin. This is the same FIFA every year. Same Call of Duty every year. It's just...
Yeah.
And they're these bloated, loot boxy...
Oh, the other game. Have you played 12 Minutes yet?
No, we talked about it though. The one with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another classic Game Pass game.
Yeah. It's games like that too, where it's like sometimes they might not take a long time to finish, but
there's more.
You still, and you also want to experience it without spending however much.
Exactly.
But that's another thing as well. Yeah. It's just like, what is a game? We talked about this with Scorn. What is a game worth? And but it's a good service, and
gives us what we like.
It's just like I don't have a lot of time to play video games, so I can't really say subscribe to it and be paying for nothing. But it's definitely worth it.
When a game comes out, it gives you the option to pay.
To pay $15 and then play. And then if I finish it early, like I did, I got to play 3 games and.
Yeah, worth it for you for that month. Anything else you want to talk about? Are we all done?
No, I think we talked enough. I'm hungry and
let's go eat.
Yeah, we'll when comes, hopefully he'll be back next week, and then we can talk about the movies we were going to talk about this week, and
hopefully he'll have played a little bit of Forspoken, and he can talk about how it may or may not have problems that other people are talking about.
We'll have to talk about that with Callum, because Callum always likes to oversee the problems, and I'm like, hang on, you. Sometimes he doesn't like to. He's like, I don't know what everyone's talking about. This game's fine, and then it's a piece of garbage. But we'll talk about that next time.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page,
Instagram and Twitter
at the Tuesday Review.
At Tuesday Review.
At Tuesday Review AU.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.